According to one child born on Christmas Day, a prophet is not without honor, but in his own country, and among his own kin, and in his own house. And in the year marking the 70th anniversary of one pastor, Oliver Brown, on behalf of his daughter Linda, deciding to do something different, to compel the nation's highest court to recognize that today, education is perhaps the most important function of state and local government, and that such an opportunity where the state has undertaken to provide it is a right which must be made available to all on equal terms. Not even one parent in a progressive southern community that had changed the names of a public high school bearing what had been called an offensive name brought a case to court when, with less cases of infection that could fit on a school bus, a decision was made to close public schools to in-person instruction. And oddly, at a time when, in China, they had been in the process of reopening schools and their economies after locking down for only just 1 month. Still, one outside agitator had decided to engage in an affirmative act of non-violent direct action, seeking to create such a crisis and foster such a tension that a community which has constantly refused to negotiate is forced to confront the issue, albeit with no report, even in the press, with only perhaps the vague reference in one disparaging political platform piece that had noted that he had been against current government efforts and recommendations for safety during the COVID-19 pandemic. According to one pastor, who his father knew, lamentably it is an historical fact that privileged groups seldom give up their privileges voluntarily. Individuals may seize the moral light and voluntarily give up their unjust posture. But as Reinhold Niebuhr has reminded us, groups tend to be more immoral than individuals. According to one pastor, who could not sit idly by in Atlanta and not be concerned about what was occurring in Birmingham, in perhaps his most controversial speech, a time comes when silence itself is betrayal. And he had thought at that time that even when pressed by the demands of inner truth, men do not easily assume the task of opposing their own government's policy. He had thought that sometimes when the issues at hand seem as perplexing, we are always on the verge of being mesmerized by uncertainty. But still we must move on. And moving through his own agonizing silence, he had thought that he had believed that his path from Dexter Avenue Baptist Church, that church in Montgomery, Alabama, where he had begun his pastorate and ministry, had led him to that sanctuary on the Upper West Side of Manhattan that night. Almost a decade ago, one man had achieved instant international notoriety for what had been described as his hypocrisy, even making headlines as an opener on a late-night television show. But over 4 years ago, when we were hit with a virus on March 14th, 2020, before the governor issued any order, they closed public schools. By March 31st, he alone was in court, bringing the very first challenge against the government lockdown to the nation, and he took that case all the way to the United States Supreme Court, while a governor ran from him. Over 3 years ago, they decided not to press forward with education, but rather to reinforce the lessons that had already been learned before they had closed schools. And they knew At the time, the closing of public schools had occurred would result in an adverse impact on education, which today has resulted in a devastating learning loss that finds the Commonwealth of Virginia ranked 6th in the nation for declines in mathematics and reading skills that will take over a decade to repair. But even during the most recent of elections, they said nothing about it. On March 15th, 2021, they permitted children to return to school under a hybrid model, while in April 2021, the governor attempted to dismiss his case brought against the lockdowns. And by April, they began to roll out a sweeping mandate to vaccinate all staff and students with a novel usage of mRNA and adenovirus known to cause cancer in transgenic mice, and with what amounted at best to an experimental countermeasure that by July 2021 had proved to be ineffective against breakthrough infections. But he decided to go to court again to challenge the vaccines, and again took that case all the way to the United States Supreme Court, where he remains today in the third iteration of that case. He had challenged the masking mandates and took that case all the way to the Supreme Court. And now with even a prosecutor asserting a prosecutorial discretion, who has retained an attorney and elected a right also to remain silent, he's back in court again, but this time against the public school board and the superintendent, who seriously chose in silence to hurt 29,000 kids and didn't even offer an apology. And you probably don't even know who he is. This message was approved by Major Mike Webb. Honest. This has been a Filmways presentation, darling.
And y'all come back now.